The operator made it look fine, and that's the problem. The customer didn't feel the mess. The founder didn't have to step all the way back in. The team didn't have to stop and admit that the decision wasn't actually clear. The follow-up got written, the owner got nudged, the loose handoff got tightened, the founder's preference got interpreted, the customer got a cleaner answer than the company had actually created. And from the outside, it looked like the system worked. But it didn't really work. A capable person made it work. That's a very different thing. And in a lot of founder-led companies, this is where hidden drag gets hard to see. Not because the company is ignoring it, not because people don't care, not because the operator isn't strong enough. Actually, it's almost the opposite. The operator is strong enough to keep catching what the system keeps dropping. They're strong enough to translate what wasn't clear. They're strong enough to smooth over the handoff. They're strong enough to pull the founder's intent out of a half-finished conversation. They're strong enough to keep the priority moving when the room didn't actually close what needed to be closed. And because they're strong enough, the weakness underneath doesn't show up right away. That's the pattern I want to talk about today. Strong operators hide weak systems. Welcome back to the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Wojnowski. Today's episode is about what happens when an operator becomes very good at cleaning up the mess left behind by decisions that didn't fully close. I'm going to use a phrase for that today, but I don't want to start with that phrase. I want to start with the room, because this is usually not a theory problem. It's a Tuesday afternoon problem. It's a leadership meeting problem. It's a founder-operator conversation problem. It's the operator sitting there after the meeting, looking at the notes and realizing, okay, we sort of agreed, but this still won't travel. That's often where the real work starts. Not in the meeting, after the meeting. So let's make it practical. Imagine a company that's trying to fix customer onboarding. Sales has been bringing in larger customers. Customer success is stretched. Product is getting pulled into too many one-off requests. The founder wants the customer experience to stay strong. The operator is still trying to make the whole thing more repeatable. So the leadership team meets. Everyone knows onboarding matters. Nobody is arguing that. The meeting is thoughtful. People say reasonable things. Sales says, we need to preserve momentum. Customer success says, we can't keep absorbing custom promises. Product says, we need fewer exceptions. The founder says, we still need to take care of strategic customers. The operator says, we need a cleaner handoff and clearer rules. By the end, the room feels like it has moved forward. There's agreement, at least at the surface. Maybe someone says, okay, let's tighten the onboarding process and be more disciplined about exceptions. Everyone nods. The meeting ends, but the operator can feel it. The decision isn't quite closed. What counts is a strategic customer. Who gets to approve an exception? Can sales still promise implementation timelines before customer success weighs in? Is product actually committing to build the onboarding tooling, or was that just acknowledged as a good idea? Is the founder still going to override the process when a large customer pushes? None of that is fully settled, but the room has already moved on. So the operator starts cleaning it up. They write the recap in a way that makes the decision sound more complete than it really was. They message sales to clarify the exception language. They check with the founder privately to understand what strategic really means. They talk to customer success so the team doesn't feel ignored. They pull product aside to see what's actually realistic. They adjust the next operating review so the issue has somewhere to live. They keep the work moving. And if they're good, they may do all of this so smoothly that most people don't notice how much unfinished decision-making they just absorbed. And that's the danger. The operator made the weak system look stronger than it really was. Now, to be clear, I'm not criticizing the operator. Not at all. This is often exactly why the operator is valuable. Good operators notice gaps early. They can read the room. They can hear what wasn't said. They can tell when the founder's intent didn't land. They can tell when the team is about to interpret the same decision 5 different ways. They can sense when a priority is going to come back before anyone else admits it. That's skill, and it matters. But if the company keeps depending on that skill without learning from it, the operator's strength becomes part of the system's weakness. And that's the line. A strong operator can rescue a decision, but if the system doesn't learn from the rescue, the same drag comes back. Maybe not with the same label. Maybe it's not called onboarding next time. Maybe it shows up as a margin pressure. Maybe it shows up as customer escalation. Maybe it shows up as product frustration. Maybe it shows up as sales needing special approval. Maybe it shows up as the founder saying, "Why am I still getting pulled into this?" But underneath, it's the same pattern. The company didn't build enough closure into the system. The operator cleaned it up afterward. That cleanup has a name. Decision residue. Decision residue is what's left behind when a decision doesn't fully close, but the organization still has to move. It's the ambiguity after the meeting. It's the unspoken trade-off. It's the exception no one defined. It's the founder preference that everyone can sense but nobody captured. It's the gap between what the room thought it agreed to and what the team actually needs to act. And strong operators often become very good at cleaning up decision residue. That's the primary pattern today. Not operator burnout, not the operator is overwhelmed, although that can happen. The deeper issue is that the operator's capability can prevent the system from seeing its own weakness. I've spent more than 40 years around operating environments, financial service teams, startups, founders, and all kinds of rooms where decisions either moved the work or quietly slowed it down. And one thing I've come to trust is this: you can't judge the strength of a system only by whether the work gets done. You have to ask what it took to get it done. Did the work move because the system was clear? Or did it move because one capable person kept closing gaps the system should have closed for itself? That distinction matters, because from a distance, both can look like progress. The customer got onboarded. The launch happened. The issue got resolved. The meeting recap went out. The founder didn't have to intervene too much. The team kept moving. All good. But under the surface, one version builds organizational strength, while the other builds dependency. And dependency can look like maturity for quite a while when the operator is good enough. That's why this pattern is so easy to miss. The visible outcome looks fine. The hidden cost sits with the operator. They carry the context. They carry the founder translation. They carry the exception logic. They carry the memory of what the room almost decided. They carry the private calibration that makes the public process work. And after a while, people stop noticing that the system needs them in order to function. They just call the operator effective, which they are, but effectiveness can hide a weak structure. Let's slow down on that. A strong operator usually does a few things very well. First, they translate ambiguity into usable direction. The room leaves something half clear. The operator turns it into language people can act on. They say, "Here's what this means for this week," or "Here's how we're going to handle exceptions for now," or "Here's what the founder was getting at." That can be incredibly helpful. But if the room never learns to create that clarity itself, the translation becomes permanent work. Second, they smooth over friction between teams. Sales thought one thing, customer success heard another. Product is annoyed because the priority keeps creating extra work. The operator steps in and makes the conversation usable. They calm it down, they reframe it, they keep the relationship intact. Again, that's very valuable. But if the system never names the real trade-off, the operator becomes the bridge everyone depends on. Third, they protect the founder from unnecessary noise. This can be a very good thing. Founders shouldn't be pulled into everything. But sometimes the operator's not just filtering noise. They're compensating for unclear authority. They know when the founder probably wants to be consulted. They know which decisions are technically delegated but not emotionally released. They know which calls are safe and which ones might get reopened later. So they manage the gap, quietly, carefully, often very skillfully. But the system doesn't learn where authority actually sits. It learns to ask the operator. Fourth, they keep the work moving before the system is ready. This is where strong operators can look almost heroic. A priority should stall, but it doesn't. A decision should come back to the room, but it gets patched. A messy handoff should expose a structural problem, but the operator absorbs it. That sounds positive, and in the short term it often is. But over time, the company loses the feedback signal. The pain never reaches the system strongly enough to force learning. That line is important. The pain never reaches the system because the operator catches it first. So the founder doesn't see the full cost. The leadership team doesn't feel the full drag. The process doesn't get redesigned. The decision rights don't get clarified. The recurring priority doesn't get examined deeply enough. The operator just gets better at carrying it. And then one day the company wonders why everything important still routes through the same person. This is one reason I'm careful when someone says she's the glue, or he's the one who keeps everything moving, or we'd be lost without them. Those can be great, heartfelt compliments, and often they're very well earned, but they can also be warnings. If one person is the glue, what isn't holding by itself? If one person keeps everything moving, what stops when they step back? If the company would be lost without them, is that because they're excellent, or because the system hasn't learned what they keep doing for it? Usually it's some mix of both. And that's where this gets sensitive, because strong operators often take pride in being useful, and they should. They're often the reason the business doesn't feel its own mess sooner. They can see around corners. They can handle complexity. They can make judgment calls in the gray. They can hold founder trust and team trust at the same time. That's not small. But if they're always the one cleaning up decision residue, the business starts to confuse their judgment with the system's capability. Those are not the same thing. The operator's judgment lives in a person. The system's capability lives in how decisions get made, carried, closed, and learned from when the person isn't in the middle. That's the test. What happens when the operator steps back? Does the priority still move? Does the team still know what was decided? Does the owner still know what authority they have? Does the founder stay out of the decision path unless the rules say they should come back in? Do the trade-offs stay visible? Do exceptions get handled consistently? Or does the whole thing start to wobble? If it wobbles, that doesn't mean the operator failed. It may mean the operator was the system, and that's a very expensive hidden dependency. Now, the founder lens matters here too, because founders often like strong operators for good reasons. A strong operator gives the founder breathing room. They reduce chaos, they turn ideas into motion, they notice what needs attention, they make sure things don't fall through the cracks, they can carry nuance, they can hold the business together as it grows more complex, but there's a subtle risk. If the founder experiences the operator as relief, they may not see the weak system underneath. The founder thinks, great, this is handled. And it is handled. But maybe it's handled because the operator is privately translating founder intent every week. Maybe it's handled because the operator is managing unresolved conflict between teams. Maybe it's handled because the operator is preventing ambiguous decisions from becoming visible escalations. Maybe it's handled because the operator knows which decisions are actually safe to make and which ones are only safe on paper. That's not the same as a system that closes decisions. It's a person acting as the closure mechanism. This is where a lot of companies accidentally build around the operator instead of learning from the operator. They keep adding work to the person who can make sense of things. They keep routing ambiguity through the person who can absorb it. They keep asking the operator to make the unclear thing usable. And because the operator can do it, the organization keeps doing it. That's the trap. Capability invites more dependency unless the system learns from the capability. So, what would it look like for the system to learn? It starts by noticing the cleanup, not blaming it, not shaming the operator for being helpful, not telling them to stop caring, just noticing it. Where did the operator have to translate after the meeting? Where did they have to clarify a decision that should have been clear already? Where did they have to interpret the founder's preference because the authority path wasn't explicit? Where did they smooth over tension that was really a trade-off the leadership team avoided? Where did they create a workaround that saved the week but taught the system nothing? Those are not minor details. They're diagnostic clues. Every cleanup move points back to something the system didn't close. A clarification points to unclear decision language. A translation points to weak shared interpretation. A workaround points to structural friction. A private founder check points to unclear authority. A repeated operator rescue points to decision residue that's becoming normal. That's the shift. You don't just thank the operator for cleaning it up. You ask what the cleanup is teaching you. Because if you only thank them, you'll probably need them to do it again next week. And then again after the next meeting. And then again when the next customer escalates. And eventually, their capability becomes the company's excuse not to grow up structurally. Nobody says that out loud, of course, but the behavior says it. The system learns, don't worry, the operator will make sense of it. The team learns, if it's unclear, route it through the operator. The founder learns, I can leave some things half said because the operator will know what I mean. The operator learns, if I don't clean this up, the work will suffer. That's how the pattern becomes durable. Not through bad intent, through repeated rescue. And this is why the solution isn't simply stop rescuing. That's too simplistic. A good operator can't just let everything break to prove a point. Sometimes the customer needs an answer. Sometimes the week needs to move. Sometimes the founder really does need help translating what matters. Sometimes the system isn't ready yet, and someone still has to carry the work. So the question isn't, should the operator ever rescue? Of course they will. The better question is, what does the system learn after the rescue? That's the difference between rescue and maturity. If the operator rescues the priority and nothing changes, the rescue becomes the system. If the operator rescues the priority and the company updates the decision path, clarifies the owner, names the trade-off, or changes the operating rhythm, then the rescue becomes learning. And that's the healthier pattern. Use the operator's judgment as a signal. Don't turn it into permanent infrastructure. Here's a practical way to look at it. Pick one priority the operator keeps rescuing. Again, it's not the whole company, just one priority. Maybe it's onboarding, maybe it's sales handoff, maybe it's hiring, maybe it's delivery quality, maybe it's prioritization, maybe it's budget trade-offs. And ask a few questions. What does the operator keep having to clarify? What decision keeps needing translation after the room leaves? Where does the operator have to interpret founder intent? What exception keeps getting handled case by case? What would break if the operator stepped back for 2 weeks? And maybe the most useful question of all, what has the system not learned because the operator keeps making it work? That question can sting a little, but it's useful because it honors the operator's capability without confusing it with organizational strength. A strong operator should make the system better over time, not become the place where all unresolved system weakness goes to hide. That's the difference. The goal isn't to make operators less helpful. The goal is to stop making their helpfulness the only reason the priority moves. A strong operator can clean up decision residue, but a stronger system reduces how much residue gets created in the first place. That's where the leadership work is. Noticing the residue, naming the pattern, closing the decision more cleanly next time, creating an authority path that doesn't depend on private interpretation, giving the owner real conditions for ownership, capturing the trade-offs so it doesn't have to live in someone's memory, and learning from the rescue instead of simply relying on it. That's how a company starts to move from operator dependency to decision maturity, slowly, practically, one recurring priority at a time. If this sounds familiar, don't start by trying to diagnose your whole company. Start with one priority the operator keeps rescuing. The hidden drag diagnostic helps you see whether the drag underneath it is decision drag, alignment drag, structural drag, human drag, or a mixed pattern. It takes you about 7 to 10 minutes. The link is in the description. And oh, by the way, it's free. Use it on the priority that keeps coming back to the operator's lap. Because if a strong operator is always cleaning up the same residue, that's not just a workload issue, it's a signal. And once you can see what the operator keeps absorbing, you can start closing the thing the system hasn't learned how to carry. Thanks for listening to the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Warren Wojnowski. I'll see you next time.